This is Victoria with Elite Medical Prep, and today we're going to be interviewing Linda Abraham, the founder of Accepted.com. I'm extremely excited to do this interview. Today we're going to be talking about the AMCAS, otherwise known as AMCAS, application system for medical school, and kind of the tips and tricks associated with the writing parts of that. So I'm super excited to see what Linda has to say. Word on the street is she's very knowledgeable, so let's see what she has for us. Hi, Linda. It's a pleasure to have you today.
Thank you so much for having me. Pleasure being here,
We're
Victoria.
very, very excited to be able to speak with you. But before we kind of get into today's topic, could you just introduce yourself and say a little bit about Accepted.com?
Sure. I founded Accepted and have been guiding applicants with the writing associated with medical school applications since 1994, kind of the prehistoric era of the internet. And we have free resources in terms of blog posts, webinars, guides, downloadable guides, of podcasts. I've interviewed several, I think 20, 30 med school admissions directors at this point. We have interviews with current students, recent medical school grads, residents, attendings. So there's a lot of resources on Accepted.
Oh, well, that's amazing. And certainly I've heard of Accepted before. I would venture to say that most people watching this video have as well. So very,
Oh, well, thank
very,
you.
very exciting. Yeah. Today we're going to be talking about the AMCAS portal for medical school applications, specifically talking about some of the writing sections that are present on that. So I was wondering if it would be okay if you walk us through a couple of the frequently asked questions that we've gotten.
Sure. Probably the most frequently asked questions about the writing in the AMCAS application is what writing is required
Yes.
and why do we have to do it? I mean, why is it relevant at all?
Mhm.
Okay. So there are basically three sections or three writing requirements, if you will.
Okay.
One is the personal statement, which is 5,300 characters. Two is the most meaningful experience essays, and they are 1,325 characters in addition to the activity descriptions that they're associated with. And there are three most meaningful experience essays.
Mhm.
And then there are the 15 activity descriptions, which are roughly 700 characters. But actually, that's the maximum count. Okay. The difference between them, the personal statement is an essay. Depending upon the size of the words you use, it'll be between 500 and 800 words. And there you're really introducing yourself as a human being, your motivations, your hardships overcome, formative experiences that have made you, the individual, the human being that you are.
Okay.
Okay? The activity descriptions, and I realize I'm going in a slightly different order, but there's a
No
reason
problem.
for that, is that you're going to focus there on your impact and your contribution in your activity descriptions. And you're also, in the way that you choose those descriptions, are going to be presenting yourself as a multidimensional human being because you're going to have different activities. Or
Right.
you should have different activities, let's put it that way.
Mhm.
The most meaningful experience essays, there are three of them, as I mentioned, and there's a maximum of 15 of the activity descriptions in the AMCAS application. The most meaningful experience essays give you an additional 1,325 characters to explain why these experiences are so significant to you. What difference did they make to you? What is the meaning that you attach to them?
Well,
So those are the three kinds of writing that you're going to have on the AMCAS application. The overall aim of the writing, in all cases, but in particular in the personal statement, but really all of them, is, and I have an acronym for it,
great.
it's PAD,
Okay.
P-A-D, okay? Not padding. We don't want padding. We want PAD, okay? The P stands for provide a window into the real you. Again, your motivations, your uniqueness, your individuality, your humanness, very simply, your humanity. A, add value to the other elements of the application. You want each piece to be like a piece in a jigsaw puzzle. It comes together and it presents a portrait. But there's not duplication. Each piece in that jigsaw puzzle has a unique role to play. And in the same way, your personal statement, your activity descriptions, and yes, your MMEs or most meaningful experience essays should each play a unique role in presenting a portrait of you, the applicant. And D, the D in PAD, stands for demonstrate your communications ability, specifically your writing ability. Okay, realize that people reading your application and evaluating whether they would like to have you as some are evaluating whether they would like to have you as someone caring for themselves or a loved one,
Right.
and as a member of their community at their school.
Wow, well, that is an incredible response. I want to first start with, after everything that you've said, the personal statement. So I realize that after that wonderful in depth explanation here, this might seem a little bit basic, but it's a question that we see popping up again, 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 and again is how important is the personal statement? In some other applications, like residency applications, personal statement is of huge importance. So is that the same when you are applying to medical school, or is emphasis placed elsewhere?
You basically, when you apply to medical school, everything is important that's in your application.
That's true.
Okay, it's just that competitive. But yes, the personal statement is very important. And the writing associated with the application is also very important because the range of grades and MCAS scores is so narrow.
Right.
They
So,
don't want to, they don't want to choose just based on grades and MCAT scores. That's holistic review. So the whole part of it, all the rest of it is usually presented via the personal statement, the most meaningful experience essays, and the activity descriptions.
right. So within those couple of different sections that you mentioned the activity descriptions, the personal statement, and then remind me of the other one.
Most meaningful
Most
experience.
meaningful experience. Is there any kind of hierarchy there where one of them is maybe looked at more closely, or as you said, is all of it just equally important and you need to do your absolute best to come up with, really good answers for all of it?
I think it's the latter.
Yeah.
I think you need to take advantage of each element to present something impressive about yourself that's going to add to this portrait. That jigsaw puzzle analogy, I think is still the best one. If you think about a jigsaw puzzle and you lose a piece, or the
Big
paper gets
trouble.
ripped off and it's blank, it ruins the jigsaw puzzle, whatever
Absolutely.
it is.
Absolutely.
Right?
So if you want to make a really strong jigsaw puzzle, let's say,
Okay,
we're
okay,
going to keep talking about the personal statement here just for a second because I
sure.
see that so much. Do you have any tips or maybe another great acronym for what makes a strong personal statement in an application?
And in fairness, well, I know I was shying away from your last question. The personal statement, just because of its length, I think is probably the most important element. But I don't want anybody to think that the other elements aren't
Absolutely.
important.
Absolutely.
All right. So, in terms of your question, what makes a strong personal statement? The first ingredient in a strong personal statement, I don't think I have an acronym for this, but I'll try and come up with one,
No problem.
is is self-reflection. Okay, you have to just think about it. You have to think about what's important to you, what's important to your life. Why do you want to be a physician? Is a key question that should be addressed in your application, in
Right.
your MCAS application in particular. What will make you a good physician? How did you test your hypothesis that you will be a great physician? What did you learn along the way about yourself as you explored either other fields or clinical medicine or research, whatever it was? Kind of what did you do? Why did you do it? And what did you learn from it? And I would, again, as I've been kind of emphasizing, but I haven't quite put it this way, take a strategic approach. Take a strategic approach, your application as a whole, so
Okay.
that everything complements each other. Again, going back to that good old
Right.
jigsaw puzzle that we've been talking about. You want the personal statement to complement the rest of the application. You want to minimize duplication. In the personal statement itself, you want a balance of anecdote or example and detail and analysis. If you tell a great story and you don't kind of say why you're telling it, you're missing something. If you tell just wonderful platitudes about why you want to be a physician and help people and you love science, etc., you won't be unique, you won't be distinctive, and you won't be revealing the humanity that I talked about a second ago. It's not enough to relate an experience. You also have to write about why it's important to you and should be important to the reader if they want to glean insight into you. At the same time, analysis, again, those assertions without experiential backup will be just as ineffective. It'll be basically a boring series of unsubstantiated assertions.
Right.
And the last thing is, this is actually something you don't want to do more than what you do want to do. You want to avoid the resume and prose. And what by that I mean, I did this, then I did that, or I was born in, I came to, I came from, I did this in high school, I did this in college, I've done this since I graduated college, and now I want to go to medical school.
Right.
That is boring. It's boring, it's non-distinctive, and it doesn't reveal anything in terms of your motivations, nor does it add much depth to any activity descriptions or what they find on your transcript or perhaps in a resume. So avoid the resume in prose.
Right. Well, that is certainly amazing insight. I feel, so much value just being here speaking to you right now. I'm not even applying to medical school, so wonderful. So I want to shift gears a little bit to the topic of the most meaningful experience essays. And I know that we've already kind of started talking about that, but I want to ask you, you spoke just now about wanting to make it, kind of interesting and it shouldn't just flow like this resume and I did this and then I did this, but is there anything that, maybe prospective applicants should avoid? Is there something that like how personal is too personal for these essays?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's kind of a hard one to answer. You
Okay.
definitely don't want to have your reader kind of cringing, like, oh, I really didn't want to know this.
Right.
Um, but the truth of the matter is that uh, difficult experiences frequently are the most formative.
Right.
So if you went through a difficult time or you experienced tragedy or whatever, and I don't want to say tragedy or whatever in a dismissive way,
Mm.
then you can write about it, but you're going to want to focus not so much on what happened to you, but your response to that experience, how
Yes.
you learned and grew from that experience. So you don't have to, and again, I'm talking in generalities right now because the
Mhm.
specifics really matter.
Mhm.
Um, you don't have to pretend that your life has always been rosy.
Mhm.
um, you can talk about something happy or sad, but the key element is going to have to be, how did you change, how did you improve, how did you grow from the experience? Now if you're writing about an obstacle overcome or a difficult experience, again, focus much more not on so much on what happened to you, but on how the experience strengthened you, made you more empathic, made you more compassionate, made you stronger in some way. Um, I sometimes like to talk about the time when our youngest child was, I don't know, 2 or so. We had a double stroller, and it
Okay.
had a metal frame, and the metal frame broke, but we didn't want to get another double stroller. We still, maybe he was one. We still needed a double stroller, and it was a good stroller otherwise. But this was obviously a long time ago. But I had to do something. So I went and I got it soldered.
Okay.
And I asked the person doing this. We lived at the time near the ocean, and there was a boat maintenance place that actually did it for us. And I asked, "Is the solder going to be like a weak joint?" And he said, "No, the solder is the strongest part."
Wow.
All right. Now that's what he told me. So you want to be like, okay, you went through a difficult experience and you got soldered, and that's the strongest part.
Wow, that is just absolutely wonderfully put. And I think that, if everybody had these kind of tips and tricks, maybe they've been written about on your website. But I think everybody, it would be such a difficult decision for the admissions people to figure out who can come in and who cannot. So the last questions that I had for this interview is related to the activity descriptions. And I'm wondering, you mentioned before the question is if there's a right or wrong way to write the activity descriptions. I'm going to say yes because we already kind of spoke about this. But I guess, do you just have any kind of tips or tricks when you think about the name activity descriptions? You think, I did this activity, here's who I helped, here's how it helped me. How can that be written in a better way that just kind of conveys who you are and why you did this activity and these kind of things?
Well, first of all, again, I think you have to step back and think strategically about what activities you are choosing to present. All
Mhm.
right. Hopefully, you're going to be one of those applicants who has so many activities you have to choose.
Right.
All right, that's number one. And you want these activities to reveal you in different roles, leadership roles, community service roles, clinical roles, maybe paid employment, research, if you have them, shadowing, honors and awards. And now some activities may fill multiple bills. You might have been a manager on the job. You might have been a head scribe, in which case you had clinical exposure, you had management, you had leadership, and you were being paid for it. So, that is possible, but these are elements that you want to bring out in the activities. And again, the idea here is you want to present yourself as a multidimensional, responsible future leader who is dedicated to service, so community service should be in there, and has the experience both within and outside of medicine to make an informed decision to enter this very demanding field. It's a very rewarding field, but according to the demands are usually the rewards. And that's what schools want to know, that you have a realistic view of medicine and that you've done good exploration.
Right. And you mentioned before that how many of these were there that you could possibly
15.
15. So is it advisable to fill out all 15 or, is there a minimum? No, no, it is. Okay. I see you're nodding
Yeah.
your head.
Yeah, yes, it is advisable.
Wow.
So you get on the audio too. It's definitely advisable to fill out all 15. I would avoid again, I'm not for padding.
Yeah.
Hopefully you are the kind of person that has 15 experiences that you can fill in.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that was all the questions that I had for this interview. Were there any other final words that you wanted to say before we concluded?
Yeah, I wanted to add a little bit more on the activity descriptions, if that's okay.
Definitely.
Okay. In terms of actually describing the activity descriptions, you don't just want to, you will describe your responsibilities, but also include your impact. Okay, your achievements, your accomplishments. Describe what you did, but also go beyond that. What was the result of your involvement on you, on others, or on the entity that you were a part of? What did you achieve? And that's kind of the second tip. And the third tip, again, these are 700 character activity descriptions.
Right. That's long. Oh, sorry. Character.
No, character, not word, character.
Okay.
Right?
Short.
So you're probably looking at 140 words.
Right.
It's 5 characters per word.
Okay.
That's not a lot at all. It's basically a paragraph. So you have to write succinctly and you have to write with impact. Avoid fillers like, I came to the conclusion that, I concluded, or I made the decision to, I decided. Write in the active voice, not the passive voice. It's much more concise. It places you as the actor usually, not as the recipient and a passive player. Use action verbs as much as possible, vivid action verbs, to write more concisely and engagingly. And again, quantify whenever possible your impact and the results of your activities. Allow time for these activity descriptions. Don't try and write them all out, and send them in on the same day. That's a recipe for disaster. And those would be basically my advice there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for all of this. I feel like, viewers are going to want to watch this again and again and again and pick this apart. So much valuable information. So again, thank you so much for being here. And we look forward to speaking on other topics at other times.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. Wow. What a wonderful interview from Linda. I feel like I've learned so much. I hope that this is one of those videos that all of you guys applying to medical school have a chance to save and rewatch kind of as you're going through your application. Just so much wonderful information here. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much to Linda for talking to us today. Make sure to hit the like, hit the subscribe button. Any links that were mentioned in the video, we will go ahead and drop in the description. Feel free to check those out, and thank you guys. Have a great day.